Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, this very simple thing that we are about to do, this thing that defines us, really as human beings, to sit down at a table and break bread with our friends, with our families, with our communities. Quite possibly humanity at its best. It's something we've done since the dawn of time. You all know this, the good times at the table, and maybe it's because we're here in the Maritimes, but this is going to be a raucous kitchen party here in about 10 minutes. And so to coming together around the table, it means the world to us, it really does. So tonight as we stand here on the verge of our feast, on this sacred ground, this traditional and unceded territory of Prince Edward Island's Mi'kmaq Nation, in this place, once upon a time known as Acadia, now of course known as Prince Edward Island, home tonight here in Canada, with so much to be thankful for. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our feast. Quite simply, cheers. 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 Here, here. Cheers.
Well, that was a fun way to kick off an episode. That was Chef Michael Smith live from the Inn at the Bay Fortune. I had a chance to attend a dinner there at my last trip to Prince Edward Island, and I thought his words of thanks and his love of that little province is a perfect way to start off an episode talking all about Prince Edward Island. So I had a chance to spend time with some friends of mine who are true locals of Prince Edward Island, born and raised, and their family welcomed my husband and I into their home, and we got to kind of see some of that Prince Edward Island hospitality in its truest form. And I thought an entire episode about the food, the drinks, and all the things that you need to see while you're there from a local's perspective might be a fun way to tackle the travel episode of Prince Edward Island. So with no further ado, you'll hear back and forth. This is my interview with Kendra and Jeff Summers from Warren Grove, Prince Edward Island. We wanted to have apps tomorrow to go with the whole cooked lobsters, right? What would be something traditionally PEI?
A traditional PEI lobster dinner comes with potato salad.
Okay. Oh, I love potato salad. But it's got to be that traditional with mayonnaise potato salad?
Yeah.
Okay.
A coleslaw.
Coleslaw? Yep.
And a roll.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty plain.
Okay. So we should get the stuff at the store then for that stuff tomorrow? I'm assuming you have potatoes in your house?
We do.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, there you go. So,
Yeah.
because I think, so we do the mini lobster rolls. You're not a big lobster fan, but there's a really good coleslaw recipe.
I like coleslaw.
Yeah. What if I gave you a coleslaw that had stuff like mango and stuff in it? And if someone wants to have it with lobster, the chilled lobster, it'd be good.
Yeah.
There's no mayonnaise in it because we're going to have mayonnaise and stuff on other things. So you can sit outside. Welcome to Flying for Flavor. I'm your host, Stephanie Piche, and I am in PEI with my friend, Jeff Summers. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, thank you. We're sitting at his kitchen table, which is what you do when you're here. I have a pot of soup on the stove.
Bisque.
Because they've let me, a pot of bisque getting ready on the stove, because when I come to visit, they let me raid their kitchen, which is a lot of fun. And he brought in 25 pounds of lobster yesterday. And he actually gave us a quick little tutorial on how to prep the cooked lobsters that we got. And there's going to be a little video that'll be attached to this show, which is kind of cool for people who are not familiar with what to do with lobsters when they buy them. So you can't get more local, you can't get more Prince Edward Island than knowing how to prep a lobster, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. So what we're drinking today, oh my goodness, what are you drinking?
Red wine.
Red wine. Oh, you're having the Barbera. It's funny. I come here and I'm drinking the local stuff, and he's drinking my wine, which is a kind of a fun thing. So I found a local blueberry ale, which I thought would be very Northern Ontario-ish. But the only cool thing is that you can only get it in a keg in Ontario. You can order it in by keg through their website, and you can get it shipped that way. So you may have to contact the brewery directly. So that's the only one they have. But I thought it was kind of fascinating that they had this blueberry ale. And it's actually distilled with macerated blueberries. Classic wheat ale with a blueberry finish. So if that's the way that you happen to enjoy your beer, this is a great one. So Jeff, I want to talk food. So if you had to create the perfect traditional plate of Prince Edward Island food, right? So if you had to make me one dinner when I came here, what would you make me?
Well, it would almost depend on the season.
Okay.
So let's talk about the season. We're in the summer season now, and PEI is really famous for their lobster,
Yes.
and famous, of course, for their potatoes. So those two ingredients would have to be in their mix.
Okay.
So one area that a lot of people like this time of year is the new potatoes. And they're very good boiled. And of course, you put butter and pepper and maybe a little bit of salt if you're so inclined.
I'm very inclined.
Yes. The other way to have the potatoes, not necessarily using new potatoes for it, is to make a PEI potato salad.
Yes, I learned how to do that the other day.
So there's many variations. Some people like the very sweet. Some people like the traditional mayonnaise. Some people put mustard in it, and my mother even goes so far to put chives into it.
Oh, that's like breaking with tradition, putting chives.
Yes.
So when you say it's sweet, though, do you think it's just the type of mayonnaise, homemade mayonnaise that they're making? You
Yes,
think?
there's a lot of people on the island like making their own homemade mayonnaise, and I find that turns to be sweet, but yeah, it's good. It's really good. That mayonnaise I love on when you make our lobster rolls down here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so people would some people tend to get lobster and want to crack them open, dip them in butter, dip them in vinegar, have mayonnaise with it. And other people like to have the type of sandwich thing. And Stephanie, you were so delightful to make our buns with garlic and butter. And I put mayonnaise, of course. There's where I put that sweet mayonnaise in it, and I love it with lobster.
Okay. So you mentioned vinegar. I've never heard of dipping lobster in vinegar before.
Yeah, some people just like the sharpness of just a hit of it.
So I guess that would be the same having some acid with it, like you would squeeze lemon, right? I'm guessing vinegar is a shortcut.
Yeah, vinegar. I don't know if a lot of people use it, but I've seen people use it.
Yeah, I saw it out on the counter yesterday. I don't know if anybody tried it.
I don't know. I think it's just kind of have some bitterness, but typically it's butter and mayonnaise, and a lot of butter.
Two of my favorite food groups.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so lobster, that was a big one. So they said we're making the lobster bisque tonight. We had lobster rolls yesterday. We had chilled lobster yesterday. We also had it on our platters the first night we were here. So we've had a lot of lobster. And then you took us for oysters yesterday. So is this oyster season 2?
Yes, it is. It's always, there's lots of different seasons for oysters, but they're popular and they're around for the summer. And then come fall, a lot of people want to get their peck or their box of oysters for November, December kind of thing. It's kind of nice if you can have some around.
Yeah, exactly. So I saw that they were served traditionally with, I saw lemon, seafood sauce, and then hot sauce. So those would be is there nothing else that you would normally serve them with? Big cities, we do fancy things like mignonette and everything else, but essentially it's lemon seafood sauce.
Yeah, that's typically what I see.
Yeah. Okay. So it's pretty standard, but the oysters were good enough that I don't think they need a whole lot. I find people put sauces on oysters when they're not as fresh and they're not as flavorful, right?
Or they don't appreciate the whole taste of the oyster.
Oh, and they're trying to mask it. There we go. That's another one. So another thing I thought was the blue mussels.
Very yummy.
Very yummy. So yes, we had those a couple times.
We had it with curry. We had it with hot sauce.
Curry's cool.
Garlic and what was it? Garlic
and white wine. Yep.
Yeah.
What was your favorite way so far? Because you've had a lot of mussels in a matter of 3 days.
Yes. I like the curry the best. Yep.
Yeah, that was a unique one. I'd like to see curry sauce. I think would be really good. And then of course you talked about the potato salad. So when I make my potato salad, I like to put mustard in it. I'm not a sweet person, but I like the tang of a little bit of mustard in it. And sometimes I go crazy and put chopped pickles. But when I mentioned that, I got eyes got really big when I mentioned chopped pickles in my potato salad. I guess it's not done here. So we had pickles on the side, which was still good.
I want the chopped pickles.
You want the chopped pickles? Well, there's leftover lobster in the fridge, so you can go make that on your own. Okay, let's get talking about drinks. So wineries, there's only a couple of wineries, I think, here on the island, right?
The only couple that we looked at.
Yeah, so there was, we didn't even go visit any because we didn't need to. We were here for visiting. So Rossignol Wines, I believe, is one of the big ones.
It's down east in Kings County, not too far from Wood Islands.
Okay.
Ferry. And it's a very nice spot. I have been there, but I wasn't into wine then. So
Yeah.
it's kind of something I didn't experience the whole experience yet.
Yeah, well, so one thing I did notice, I was looking on their website, and L'Acadie Blanc is one of their white wine varietals that they grow there, and that's really big in Nova Scotia right now. So the more they keep producing those, I was saying you have a big enough property here. I was telling Kendra you should be planting some vines. You have enough?
Yeah, we don't have enough things to do.
So I started building a winery in their backyard. Another couple of things I saw were drinks that were really big. Everyone's making a maple liqueur. If they're a distillery or anything else, everyone seems to have it. So I'm guessing maple liqueur is really big. It's funny, as much as we have it a lot in Ontario and Quebec, like maple products, I haven't seen a maple liqueur yet. So I have distillery friends in Sudbury that I'm going to talk to about making a maple liqueur, because I think that's going to be done.
We tasted that. Norman and I went and tasted that next door to our.
Yeah, they went tasting when I wasn't around. How fun is that? So the maple liqueurs are really big. Ciders are starting here. We found quite a few cideries, I guess. So it's a little bit early for harvest this year, because harvest usually for apples kind of goes later in the fall. But a lot of ciders, and they're not necessarily the hard ciders. They're just a classic apple cider. So that's going to be a big one. Beer, you have quite a few beer breweries. One of them is the blueberry ale that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, and that's the, how do you pronounce that? Gahan Blueberry Ale. And then there's also a, what was the other one? Upstreet. And unfortunately, we can't get that in Ontario, but that seems to be a big one because every restaurant that we went to was carrying an Upstreet. Upstreet Commons was the big one. And I forget what the other two that we had. We saw them at just about every restaurant had it.
I can't remember those.
Well, even in a Bay Fortune last night, our very first course with the chowder had the Upstreet bottle cap on the plate. I think that was to signify that there was some Upstreet beer in that chowder, which I thought was pretty cool. And
There's
then
lots of other microbreweries throughout outside of Charlottetown too, so they should be mentioned.
yeah, okay, list them off.
Well, I don't remember all of them, but Copper Bottom down in Montague, it's a nice one there. And there's supposed to be another one served up down in Montague, but it hasn't initiated yet. But yeah, there's quite a few going all through, and there's some interesting spots on PEI. It's certainly very interesting. Let's just use that word.
Interesting. That sounds like code. So there's enough probably that if somebody wanted to spend a weekend and just go like basically on a drink fest, right, from one brewery to distillery or whatever, they can basically spend an entire weekend doing that. So that's kind of cool to see. Everyone's kind of distilling something, I suppose. So speaking of distillation,
yes, there's the Shine.
that's what I was going to talk about. Yes. So Shine is the PEI version of moonshine, if you're not familiar with what it is. There's still somebody making an apple pie shine here, which I've seen in a few other provinces are doing that as well. Apple pie seems to be a big flavor. What are the other? I know there's a classic Shine.
There's a company up near Surrey, just between Royal Bay and Surrey, that are right into the making Shine. I don't know if there's a second one or not, though.
Do you have a favorite?
I'm not into that.
You're not into Shine? Is that too much?
I don't like it.
The apple pie wine's really good. Apple pie one is really good, warmed up, like a hot toddy in the winter. Just saying. Maybe with a cinnamon stick in it. And then the other two things I thought was cool, there's a lot of course, because of potatoes. I saw potato vodka. Seems to be a really big thing here. I mean, that's a classic way of doing it in Eastern countries. They do a lot of potato vodka. I mean, it's a big Russian thing. That's how they started, right? I don't know if you try it or drink it. You're not a big vodka drinker here either? No. But for those who want vodka, there's a vodka pretty much everything here. I think I even saw someone making a wild blueberry vodka and one of the ads. I did some research before I came here. I didn't come in here blind, you know. Okay, so here's my last thing for travel. Got a few questions. This would be if someone was visiting this end of the country, so like maybe they're coming to try to do tour around like New Brunswick and PEI and all these areas and provinces, and they basically dedicated one day here to come onto the island. They would only have one day. Where do they go first? What would be if you want to come and spend a day in a town, or like where would you send them for the day?
If I was coming for a day and I wanted to have an experience of beaches, I would absolutely say to go to Basin Head, and that is up past Surrey.
Okay.
And it's a wonderful Singing Sands beach. There's a wharf up there that a lot of people jump off, and
Fun.
it is quite becoming a tourist area, but it's not a tourist trap. So it still has some authenticity to it. And it's very Surrey area, East Point, lots of things to do that way. And there is, as we say, there's a few nice restaurants up there. Not a lot, but it still means that it's still a place that has kind of not been hit with too much tourism.
You said beaches would be the number one draw there, right? So I see picnic coming up, right?
And you can
Grabbing
see some
snacks and-
traditional lobster boat wharfs out there that way, and there's campgrounds and all that. So that would appeal to some. Another area that I really like is out Stanley Bridge Way and Rustico Way, because you're seeing lobster wharves with a lot of really nice restaurants out there. And of course, it's in between all those two places is Cavendish, which is a big tourist area. So if you know to get out of Cavendish and you don't want the touristy stuff, go to Rustico or Stanley Bridge Way.
Oh, that's good. I am going to include a map in the show notes for everybody so they can follow along, and we'll kind of circle and pinpoint all these places that he mentioned. So then if they're coming for a full weekend, so your top 3 places would be Rustico, Cavendish, and then the bay up north. They would still come and spend some time here in Charlottetown, you
I
think?
think you'd have to spend time in Charlottetown. A lot of people like seeing where Confederation started and seeing the old structures. It's worth a day or even half a day to walk around and see the area. Some people then like to say, okay, you'd have to make a decision if you're going to go to Surrey, because that's a drive, or you make a decision to go to Cavendish Way, but certainly do your research of look at Rustico, because there is some really unique restaurants. There is lots of things for kids to do if you have children, but then as you go along the coast, it's very scenic. And you can see things in Stanley Bridge and keep going further, and then can almost pop into Summerside, which we haven't spoken about. So Summerside's pretty nice too. So, and then there's the West End. What you need a week to do the
whole island.
Give it justice.
So at least a very long weekend, right? At the very least, just to go and say that you've done everything. Okay, and so here's my last thing. Accommodation, what would be a recommendation? B&B, in hotel.
I would actually think the cottages that people are renting.
Yeah, renting a cottage for the week.
The cottages. So there's a lot of people that will do that all across the island, and that way there's some that are clustered together and some that have their own private area. Typically, they're all registered through the province, which is preferred. And I do believe Airbnb is kind of coming about.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
But they're still. As I said, cottages are probably the nicest to get an experience of it, preferably than hotels.
Yeah, that feeling like a local. So I'm going to include the link to the Tourism PEI website in the show notes as well, and that'll give you all the links for some accommodation and other tourist information so you can kind of plan your trip when you're coming here next time. So any last words of people of why they should come and make this a point if they're going to come and visit Canada?
Well, it's the smallest province, and in our opinion, the best province. So,
well, of course,
you get the flavor of coming across the bridge, Confederation Bridge, and you also get the flavor by coming or going on a ferry, and you'll have a very scenic area all through the whole island. We've seen different areas of forests and rolling land and trees, and depending on the time you come, potatoes growing, or seeing fisheries, or going out on a charter boat to do deep sea fishing. So it's a unique spot.
Well, I think so. And I think that's one of the reasons on my last social media post, I actually called it Canada's favorite island. You're welcome. All right. So thanks to the Summers family for hosting us this weekend, showing us around this beautiful island. Make sure to check out the map and other links on the show notes page. Today's show notes can be found at stephaniepichet.ca/flavor54. Yes, that's right. We are at episode 54. Please rate and subscribe us on all Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast player you're listening to us on. And until next week, enjoy the rest of this week, the rest of your summer, and make a plan to start seeing our great country one province at a time, like Prince Edward Island. Cheers.